While inspired by high school movies like The Breakfast Club,
You just bought yourself another Saturday, mister.
Crush.
in my dynamic action fantasy shonen manga, I broke all the rules, making a manga chapter no action, and a lot more talking, breaking a couple rules with the hopes that I will engage with readers through the characters. I think this is a risk for a shonen action series, but if done right, could breed a lot of originality, nuance, character development, story development as a result, and yield the favor of the reader. Was I successful? We'll see. While making Apple Black Volume 5, Chapter 38, 38 or 36? 36. In Chapter 36 of my manga, The Dreamers Club, I took a risk here where I was going to do something that I don't usually do or maybe might be frowned upon, but I have the freedom to do it given I have more control with the narrative of Apple Black. It's mine. As I mentioned, I took a couple risks. Doesn't really have action. I try to be dynamic with the writing and some of the visuals, but for the most part, especially in comparison to most of the other chapters that preceded, I knew I was kind of taking a risk, especially because, there's always going to be a couple chapters where it's not that much action. You don't want to be just action, action, action. You have to have the characters drive what's going on, their goals, be dynamic with what happens and plot twists and yada, yada, yada. Just good writing overall. But this one was extra different because, one, it's probably one of the longest chapters. So having a long chapter with no action, a little risky for an action series. Two, I like to have fun with my writing. I wear my influences and inspirations on my sleeve. And this was a big nod and homage to one of my favorite high school movies, The Breakfast Club. I don't remember why I was watching that movie, but I remember watching the movie and really liking just the idea of all these kids at detention engaging with one another where they would normally not, and connect in ways that they would normally not, in ways that were also very interesting to us, the viewer. You gotta deep dive into the psyche and into the minds of these teenagers and how they view the world and how they view each other, just life as a teenager at the time. Even though it's an older movie, it's aged pretty well, to the point where other forms of media have also paid homage and nods to this. And this is honestly where I got the idea to do something like this, where I watched an episode of Victorious. Victorious fans, you guys probably know what I'm talking about.
It is now 7:06.
It's 7:06 a.m. here in Los Angeles.
A lot of the scenes were callbacks to scenes from the original movie, where the kids bond. They do a lot of shenanigans during detention when the teacher is not looking. It was generally just a fun show, just having fun. That said, I actually watched the Victorious episode before I even knew what The Breakfast Club was. And I was still able to get those beats where there was character-driven stuff happening, and it's also pushing the story forward, and it's still making you feel closer to these characters. And I just thought it was genius. And then, come to find out, it's actually a nod to The Breakfast Club, and I think actually that is why I went to go watch The Breakfast Club. I watched The Breakfast Club because of the Victorious episode. As most of you know, the arc that we're in inside Apple Black right now is the tournament arc, and I thought this would also be a nice, easy, quick way to give all the characters some kind of drive, to show the audience what their drives are, what their motives are, especially going into that tournament, and why they would want to win, raising the tension and consequences of, situations where maybe they lose or they're knocked out or something like that. And you're not just focusing on the main character, Sano, and stuff like that. We have something a little bit more dynamic. For the tournament arc, I'm drawing inspiration from a lot of places. Other tournament arcs in famous shonen manga, like we see in Hunter x Hunter for the Hunter exams, the Chunin exams in Naruto, the sports festival in My Hero Academia. I also draw from other places that aren't necessarily tournament arcs per se, like the Hunger Games, and as well as real life events like the World Cup, which will be next year. And as we know, if you are more engaged with the character, you know who they are, you know what their purposes are, at least how they view themselves or how they view their goals, you're more invested in actually what happens on the pages. Whether it be a fight here and there, or things that lead up to it, and so on. I will still have some of that being developed in real time as we are in some of the fights and the way the tournament arc is going to be set up. But this chapter also was a great way to introduce some of those themes and reintroduce the characters and what their goals are and motives and why they would even want to participate in the tournaments and win. I'll have a separate video breaking down the tournament arc and what I planned for it, how it's actually going to be structured and all of that. But the point is, it starts in Volume 5. In this chapter, we have all these characters kind of like in the Breakfast Club going through detention for the events that happened prior in Volumes 1 to 4. Unlike the Breakfast Club, we kind of know why these kids are in detention. And I saw an opportunity to start to make the magic happen. Birdman has. It's risky for a host of reasons. One, it's something that's rarely ever been done before. I personally haven't seen many shonen characters depicted in such ways, while still capturing and being authentic to that teenage angst, showing off all the archetypes of each character, the dynamics between one another. I wanted to pay homage while also still doing things that are still me and completely fresh and original. So there's aspects of the chapter that are, in my opinion, satisfying. Like there's a punch in there that is a callback to not the movies, but punches that have happened prior in the series. Most of you know what I'm talking about. And when the punch happens this time in this chapter, it's almost full circle in a way. I really like this moment because all the punches prior to this feel like an ongoing gag, but in this chapter, it feels like the gag has paid off in a satisfying way. There are some panels that are even visual nods where it's almost shot for shot. Very few, actually. The scene takes place in a library just like The Breakfast Club. We get to see how the characters interact with one another. And like in those movies, they had to write an essay in order to leave detention. We also see the group eating certain brownies. If you know, you know. But again, also a nod.
Slob. My maid's on vacation.
Drugs. Screw that bender. Put it back. Drugs. Boy has marijuana. That was marijuana. Shut up, Dick. Do you approve of this?
Tacos. The girl has tacos. They're tacos. Do you approve of this?
I found creative ways to add some dynamism with some colored pages. So you do get a smidge of action, almost teasing what this whole world is like. Imagine this was the only chapter you read, you would still get the vibe of what's going on in the series overall. I also tried to make sure the library was very fantastical, a pure translation of what it would be like in Apple Black. Like The Breakfast Club, the teenagers were kind of exploring themselves, almost like this giant therapy session, in pursuit of truth, of who they really were, what they really wanted, and all of that, and the lies they told each other and themselves. My series explores that and more, revealing deeper secrets as to who these characters are and what drives them. And in a way, unlike The Breakfast Club, all of them kind of pseudo-making a pact to tell the truth from now on. Why they behaved the way they did, what masks they wear hiding who they truly are. Full circle again, tying into that punch. So it's not all gags and Easter eggs and paying homage to a really good movie. It's deeper than that. You feel me? New declarations made, more hype for that tournament that is to come. The Nirvana Games. I even love the Breakfast Club theme song a lot. Don't you forget about me. And funny enough, that episode was probably my favorite Victorious episode. A lot of the dynamics between the characters kind of reminded me of mine, and I think that's what really got me glued. With regards to the Breakfast Club, the characters are not necessarily one-to-one where, say, Sano represent character A from the TV show or the movie. The roles, with regards to the nods, actually flip from scenario to scenario. Victorious also does it this way as well. While giving a nod to one part of the movie, they might have character A do something that a certain character did in the movie, but then for a different scene, they might actually switch the role, so they just did what fit. And then another thing I wanted to make sure while doing this chapter was that, obviously, the reader shouldn't have to know what the Breakfast Club is to enjoy it and still understand what's happening. They don't need to have any knowledge about the Breakfast Club or Victorious to enjoy the story and still have it be seamless with what came before it and what's going to come after it. Character development, story development, all of that. Always be a fun Easter egg, whatever. 99 Easter eggs you missed in chapter 36 of Apple Black Volume 5. As I mentioned, one of the concerns was the length of the chapter. The first time I wrote the chapter, just like a rough draft, it was about 45 pages. And sometimes when you're making manga, you don't have 45 pages to just fool around with. Again, this is a business in a way. It's also still fun. I'm making stories that I want to tell and that you guys are enjoying. But at the same time, I'm competing with other series that are out there. When you go to Barnes & Noble and you see Apple Black, it's A, so it's right next to, Apothecary Diaries, Attack on Titan, all the A's. Like, I'm competing for shelf space. I'm competing for your eyes and, as I mentioned, your attention, even with these YouTube videos, everything. So yes, I want to take the risk and do the nods, but I still want to have it be dynamic, fresh, still me, but then also not too long. And 45 pages for a chapter with no action for a book that is about 200 pages, basically like a quarter-ish, no action? No. Even if the writing is good and, you know, the characters have great dynamics with one another, at the end of the day, the genre of this is this action, fantasy, whatever. So you can have those moments where you pump the brakes. It's not full throttle action every 2 seconds, but during those breaks, you can't slow everything down that much. And I remember rewriting everything, moving things around, having to cut out certain things. And I think it actually worked out for the better, because then I was able to even cut out what could be considered fluff and bring it down from a 45-page chapter to 29. Because I'm also thinking about the arc overall. I'm going to attempt to have the whole arc be done in 3 volumes, or, you know, maybe 3.5, but like probably 3. So I'm thinking about how many pages I'm devoting to these moments with regard to the arc overall. And when you think about the 3 volumes, 5, 6, and 7, that will generally be this Nirvana Games arc, maybe a little bit in the beginning of 8. I want to see them as like an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And so for Act 1, I have to make what I feel as Act 1 fit into Book 5. And devoting that many pages to it was not the way. Again, every chance you get is a chance to entertain, show stuff that's interesting, push the story forward, push the characters forward, and stay true to what the story actually is. And it's a shonen, adventure, fantasy, action thing. And 45 pages, might have been too much of a risk. Again, maybe I would have done it and it would have worked out, but it might be a little bit too much. I think it worked out for the better. It was quicker, it was snappier. I was able to focus on what was necessary. That was like a first draft. 45 pages. Usually I can always like rewrite things and it always kind of comes down, but I really needed to come down. So from 45 to 29, I'll take it. That is a huge drop, a huge welcome drop, and I think it worked out, or did it? I generally look at the reviews of my manga, and I've been around long enough to know when I'm getting useful feedback, whether it's negative or positive. There's always going to be people, maybe they don't enjoy it for whatever reason. You can't please everybody, so that's besides the point. Thankfully, about 95, 96% is always positive, so thank you guys for that. Thank you guys for enjoying the books, and shout out to everybody who supported getting any book and leaving reviews versus, you know, somebody's just being a troll. Or worse, a troll pretending like this is constructive, but you're just being a troll. I can tell when someone's a troll, I can tell when someone is racist, and it's just not worth my time. And then I can tell when maybe they didn't even like it, but they're being constructive. This person isn't a hater or troll or just trying to harass. With Volume 5, there were a lot of notes where people were like, this might be the best one yet. One of the ways I know that this particular chapter worked is because a lot of the comments were, oh, I love the more character-driven approach in this volume. Not that the other volumes didn't have that, but the risk that I took, so much so that it was worth mentioning. In fact, there was even a review that wasn't even 5-star, but even that person felt the need to mention that chapter. And you guys have to read it for yourself to understand why they're called the Dreamers Club. Obviously a nod to the Breakfast Club. If you haven't seen the Breakfast Club, highly recommend it. Top tier movie for all ages. This volume actually has a lot of really cool chapters and a lot of cool action, dynamic, all that stuff. But I just remember reading reviews and seeing them reference that chapter in particular a lot as a reason why this volume ranks high for them. To me, I took as an indicator that breaking the rules sometimes pays off. And so hopefully this is inspiration for you guys to not always be formulaic with the way you might come up with your own stories, whether it be a shonen or not a shonen, maybe a romance, you do something that's completely left field. Usually when you break the rules in certain ways with temperament and caution, or not, I don't know, do whatever you want to do, have fun with it. Usually that would breathe some more originality, you putting your stamp on the genre a little bit more, and just having very memorable moments that people and readers are not going to be able to get anywhere else. Even though this is a nod to something you can get somewhere else, like the Breakfast Club, the way I execute and how it fits my world of Apple Black, and then the little twists that I add that are completely fresh to me and fit the world that I've built so far, I had fun with. But I remember writing it and just putting it all together and just thinking, I hope this chapter works. I hope people enjoy it. And I think they did. And maybe I'll also have another video going into more of a breakdown on the plans of the Nirvana games without giving away too much, obviously. I want you guys to read it. Please support the Patreon. Let's help a great deal with these videos as well as production on the comic itself. For everybody who made it to the end of this video, I thank you. There are other films, movies, TV shows, musical albums, obviously anime that influenced me even in this same volume, and maybe in other videos I'll be able to talk about that even more. If you like this video, subscribe, hit the bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. YouTube loves that. Watch more videos on the channel. This is Whyt Manga, and take that risk. What's the worst she'll say?